James Charles is speaking out about some of the drama that he found himself in last week, and it sounds like he's not happy. We also have to talk about his palette that went on sale the other day and all the drama that came from it. It's a mess, so let's get into it. Last week, we talked about James admitting to lying about liking a Morphe palette that he promoted years ago. James did a video with Lipstick Nick, and they were talking about the first time they ever worked together, and it was for a Morphe campaign shoot for the Dare to Create palette. This was James' first ever time working with Morphe. He was the face of the whole line, and he did a video promoting the collection and talking about how much he loved it. Well, you can imagine everyone's surprise when James admitted to thinking that palette was actually hideous.
She did my makeup. It was for a 2017 Morphe palette called the 39...
Dare to Create.
How did you remember that?
That's
a good memory.
Elephant,
okay, but I think enough time has passed now where we can comfortably say that palette was fucking idiot. But I will say that was like my first time working with Morphe, and I think they wanted to put me to the test to see if I was good to collaborate with, and that is the shoot that then got me my James Charles palette. So it was ugly, but I am grateful. Yes, blessing in disguise.
And I don't know why James thought it would be a good idea to admit this. All it did was make people lose trust in his recommendations, and he was suddenly becoming an example of why you shouldn't trust what influencers say. James is finally addressing the statement he made, and he's denying that he ever lied about once liking the palette. He says people are taking it way out of context, and he just meant that he no longer likes the palette.
Actually, let's talk about that. Somebody said, how are we to trust you when you talk about a palette that you hated? I've seen a couple of people talking about this on TikTok, where basically, in a video with my friend Lipstick Nick, let's discuss. So the drama channels who are screen recording, you can get this clip. So in that clip, I talked about how, when I did my makeup with my friend Lipstick Nick, how I did a palette with Morphe a million years ago that now looking back was ugly. And I think a lot of people are basically using this to be like, influencers are all lying to you. And that is absolutely not the case and so taken out of context. It's ridiculous. Basically, when I was 17 years old, I got asked by Morphe to model for a palette. It was not a collaboration. I was not paid. I literally just had my code James, but it was not my palette. I was literally just the model. Like when you click on the website and you click into a product, you see people's faces, that's all I was doing. It was not mine. And at the time, I thought it was a nice palette. I said yes. I had a great time doing it. It was an incredible opportunity for me as a kid, and I had fun. It was fun. But now, looking back 5 years later, I don't like the palette anymore. Everyone's taste changes, right? I had so many makeup looks, so many outfits, so many hairstyles, so many videos that I made when I was a young kid that I thought at the time were so fun and so slay. But now looking back as an adult, my taste has changed. And that doesn't mean that that thing sucked. It just means that now I've grown up, I've evolved, and I'm interested in different things. So I just don't like the color story in that palette anymore. At the time, it was an incredible opportunity for me as a 17-year-old kid. I had a great time modeling. I was excited to have the opportunity. That opportunity to work with Morphe is what got me my palette in the first place, because we had a great time getting to be on set together. But that was not my palette. It was literally just me taking photos for it. So that's it. That is it. Looking back now, I have different taste, I've elevated, I've grown, and yeah, I wouldn't do that photo shoot 5 years later, but that doesn't mean that it was a bad palette, that doesn't mean that I'm a liar, that literally just means that my taste has changed since I was a teenager years ago. That's all.
I don't know what you think, but I'm not really sure I'm buying that. The way he worded it sounded like he was saying enough time has gone by so people won't care that I admit to thinking that palette was ugly. I think he just didn't expect the response he received, and this is his way of trying to get out of it. Another thing James has been promoting all week now is his new painted product. He launched his basic canvas palette the other day, and he's been pushing it all month long, probably hoping it'd be more successful than his paints. Since this will be the second palette with his name on it, a lot of people have been comparing it to the original James Charles palette with Morphe, and it sounds like a lot of people actually miss that palette. Someone posted a video talking about the highlight shade in his Morphe palette and how they really need to find something similar. James actually stitched the video, and he said he had a dupe for that color in his new palette.
I have some good news for you. Now we all love ring light. She was cute and she did her job for the time, but take a look at this. My new palette from my brand Painted called the Basic Canvas. This shade Finnegan is literally her brighter, more gorgeous, glitterier, sexier, hotter, more talented older sister. Look at those two shades. Launching November 14th on TikTok Shop and November 15th on Painted.
But he was met with a lot of pushback from people saying they're not similar at all, and James was getting pretty defensive. One person said, "It's pink. James, please release that exact shade and same formula into a big highlight pan. We are pleading. I am on my knees for this." And James responded, "It's not pink, but okay, note taken." Another comment he replied to wrote, "The new one has a pink undertone and almost looks like a copper color. The old one is giving actual moonlight glitter." And James did not like this comment because he responded, "Copper? Please be for real." Now let's talk about the actual launch. James was set to launch on November 15th, but decided to have an early release on TikTok Shop the day before. This is where a little bit of drama happened because Jeffree Star was also doing the same thing. He was also releasing his Scorpio palette on November 15th, but decided to release it a day earlier on TikTok Shop. A lot of people were like, this could get interesting because they're both in the same category, both releasing an eyeshadow palette, so there could be some competition. Now let's talk about the obvious here. They both have very different color stories. One of them is just like the name, basic, more for everyday wear, whereas Jeffree's has more bold colors and might not be for everyone. On November 14th, when James launched his palette on TikTok Shop, he also decided to put it on sale. He was offering 25% off and free shipping. I haven't heard if Jeffree was offering any discount, so I don't think he was, but the numbers definitely reflected that. TikTok Shop actually tells you how many units were sold, and James had sold 3,945 palettes whenever this was taken, whereas Jeffree had only sold 210. Now, I don't have access to the updated numbers because TikTok Shop isn't available in Canada yet, but James did end up selling out of his palette on TikTok. Keep in mind, these aren't the final numbers. These are just what was sold on TikTok Shop, and like I said, it's not yet available in every country, so who knows how many palettes they sold when they officially launch on their own websites. A lot of people are saying that there probably were a lot of factors that went into the major difference in numbers, like James having a more everyday use color story, and the fact that he was offering a pretty good discount. It's still pretty shocking to see how major the gap in sales is, especially since there was a day when people would be lining up for Jeffree's palettes and crashing his websites. It makes me wonder if this feature of being able to see how many units were sold is going to stop influencers from selling their stuff on TikTok. I mean, it's great if you know you're gonna get good numbers, but for others, it might not be that appealing to have your sales out there so publicly on TikTok. I will say, I am surprised that James managed to have a pretty successful launch on TikTok, given everything that's come out about him over the years. I feel like his first launch with the paints wasn't the best at all. I hardly saw any reviews for them, and I thought maybe that was because he's lost a lot of support, but I don't know what happened with this launch. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think about everything down below, and I'll see you next time.